Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to make my presentation on the 2013 budget, which has the theme Overcoming Challenges Together, Accelerating Gains for Guyana. I hasten to say, Mr. Speaker, after listening to the presentations made by my colleagues on the other side of the House, I am not convinced that truly this was their initial intention in crafting of this 2013 budget. For Mr. Speaker, if indeed they were so much into working together with all the stakeholders, including the opposition, why then the idea proposed by the leader of the opposition, Mr. David Granger, honorable member, to have a meaningful engagement as a tripartite party in planning this 2030 budget was not accepted in good faith. I can recall as a junior teacher, I was taught how to plan a lesson in order to teach effectively. I remember clearly in planning, you must take into consideration the condition, performance, and criteria. Given the condition, Mr. Speaker, that we are in a situation where the majority of seats in Parliament is being occupied by the opposition, that's the condition. One would have then decided to go about planning the budget, that is to involve the majority. But, Mr. Speaker, this was not done. And now for you to come in this August House, persuading me and my colleagues on this side of the House to accept and bless the budget as it stands is unacceptable. Mr. Speaker, I will now begin to make my comments on some of the measures used to validate this budget. I recall clearly saying to the Minister of Amerindian Affairs during my contribution to last year's budget speech that which cannot be measured cannot be improved. Today, as I examine some of the measures presented by the Honorable Minister of Finance, I must commend him and his staff for their hard work in putting together this budget. I must commend them for their hard work, but this does not merely state that it's a good budget, but their efforts must be recognized. Mr. Speaker, I am looking to see what provisions has been made in this budget under the heading Mortgage Interest Relief for our teachers, nurses, and other government workers who work and live in the hinterland communities, Mr. Speaker, of whom do not own individual title lands or a house lot, owing to the fact that they live on a communal land, which is an Amerindian community. Hence, they are not able to access loans from the commercial banks or any other agency such as DPF without a transport. I have known of incidences where teachers traveled to the city to transact such business and were turned down because of the spending situation. I am therefore asking the relevant ministries to implement and adopt policies to promote home ownership to such hard-working individuals serving in our hinterland. Mr. Speaker, this brings me to another important point, Amerindian land rights. Another current issues of concern to our Amerindian brothers and sisters. Mr. Speaker, indigenous leadership and decision-making at the national level is often constrained by government interference. For example, the National Two-Shows Council, which is housed in the Ministry of Amerindian Affairs building, has no independent funds to carry out its business of the council. The Indigenous Peoples Commission, which is an independent body established to look into the matters that affect the lives of our indigenous people, has a lot more to do, or in fact has not done anything to this day, as it is mandated. Mr. Speaker, I have been mandated by the pupils of Kako Primary School to highlight the challenges that confronts them on a daily basis. More so as they are being currently challenged with the mining activity that has begun up the Kako River. They are struggling along with their parents to keep their main source of drinking water, their only main source of drinking water, which is the Kako River in its pristine state. And hence, I will repeat the words of their song. Come on, all you people, stop this destruction. Let us join and fight to stop discrimination. Don't be led astray, my friends. Seek God's inspiration. A little effort from you, my friends, can change this situation. The residents of Kako are eagerly waiting on the Minister of Amerindian Affairs and the Minister of Natural Resources and Environment to quickly satisfy their request that was made by a statement presented to the visiting team. Mr. Speaker, we must be sensitive to the cries of our indigenous people. As it relates to the safeguarding of the rivers and traditional lands, we must remember that they are our first people and are entitled to their rights as any other Guyanese. And so when I heard the Honorable Minister of Housing and Water, Mr. Irfan Ali, vigorously saying that this government puts its people first, the Guyanese first, I could not have agreed with him when you and all of us can allude to the fact that this was not the case with the people of Isineru in the Middle Mazaruni. January of this year, where a court order was passed to have the miner continue mining in their titled lands. Let the voices of our brothers and sisters be heard, and let something be done to solve these problems. I believe and I know that in your good offices, we can together as a team state find solution to these problems. I wish to remind this august body that consultations, my friends, is always the proper thing to do. Consultation must be done first with the people, whether they be in the mountains, in the valleys, irrespective of their location. We need to go and meet with the people, consult them, and before any policy is implemented. Prevention is always better than cure. Education. Mr. Speaker, with 28.7 billion being budgeted for this sector, I was hoping to see somewhere in the estimates in the capital expenditure, money is being allocated to build a technical school, which I had requested during my last year's budget presentation. I also request that a school's welfare officer be employed who will be based at the Cameron Education Office to assist in curbing the accelerating, not gains, accelerating pains or issues of teenage pregnancy and delinquency of students at the primary tops and secondary school, the Waramadan Secondary School. I was hoping to see monies being allocated to establish a science laboratory, home economics department, or ICT lab, which the people of Upper Mazaruni has been requesting for ever since I came into this parliament in 2010. Mr. Speaker, what this government boasts about as saying the children in the hinterland now have access to universal secondary education is not true in reality. Yes, they have access to a secondary school building, but not secondary school education. For these buildings are still without trained teachers. They are without home economics department, no science lab, equipment, textbooks. These continue to be in dire need for each school in the hinterlands. is still far, many schools are still far from being child-friendly. Mr. Speaker, the question is then asked, what exactly happened to the $26.5 billion which was expended in this sector in 2012? Did our children reap the value for money spent? One is left to wonder what will be done with the $28.7 billion allocated for this year. I must inform this Honorable House that the Jawala Village Council, in recognition of their role as a partner in education, decided to take upon their shoulders to erect and complete the construction of a new nursery school building. They must be commended for their efforts. After making the request and thinking that it was the state's obligation to build schools, they could not wait any longer when the 88 nursery children were crammed in a classroom. And so, Mr. Speaker, the community is asking the Ministry of Education to ensure that the school is equipped with outdoor playing equipment such as slides, swings, and other equipment that the children can use to play. The building is also wired, and request was made to the regional administration to find a source of electricity, but to this date there is none. Teachers' incentives. Mr. Speaker, for too long the teachers in the hinterland, or what we call remote areas, have been given an incentive of $7,000, which was intended to ease the problem of high cost of living. This program began in 2006, and from 2006 to present, we all know the cost of food prices, fuel prices have been on the rise year after year. To have, just to name a few, a pound of chicken now costs from $750 to $1,200 a pound. When you go to shop at places like Cameron, a teacher goes to buy chicken, flour, sugar in Kaikan or Philippi. The farther you go away from the city, higher the cost of items you will find. I therefore ask that this government consider in raising the rural area incentive allowance from $7,000 to a reasonable amount to meet the demands of these basic needs. Physical infrastructure, roads and bridges. Mr. Speaker, I have seen in this year's budget that the 5 miles Bartica-Potaro Road has been allocated some sums of money. I did ask this National Assembly to ensure that the Barticians have access to a proper heavy-duty road. Mr. Speaker, if you go there to travel from Bartica to Bartica Airstrip, which is about 5 miles, you will have a very bad experience of hippity bump. The road at its present state is very bad, Mr. Speaker. It's worse than last year. And I have been told that the aviation services has indicated to re-establish their scheduled flights in and out of Bartica to other locations. And as such, Mr. Speaker, I think this government, we need to hasten in constructing a proper road, not only for the Barticians, but also for visiting friends. Mr. Speaker, let me come to GPL. With the allocation of $11.2 billion for this sector, I hope, and on behalf of the residents of Bartica, make a request that the power station there is in dire need of new engines, Mr. Speaker. When the engines are being started, you will see a lot of smoke around the market area. And it was jokingly said that maybe a new pope was being installed there. Bartica should be now treated not with fairy lights, today on, tomorrow out, but lights that they can be able to enjoy as anybody else on this coast. Water still continues to be a problem to the residents. Just as the lights go on today, off tomorrow, that's exactly what is happening with the water system in Bartica. Please, Mr. Speaker, I'm asking this government to look into this matter too, so that they can have access to clean, potable water. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I must say that this budget, 2013 budget, indeed is bigger, but not better in any way. For it has not been, as I go through the measures, the measurement that the Honorable Minister of Finance used, it has not in any way alleviated the poverty of these people, of the poor people in this country. People that are in the hinterland, remote areas, even on the coast. We still have a lot more to do for these people. Remember, they are the people who voted for us. And therefore, we must serve and satisfy their basic need as a government, as a parliamentarian, whatever capacity we find ourselves in, we need to look after the welfare of our people. Thank you very much.